Hi there, and welcome back to the Energy Sector Heroes podcast. My name is Michelle Fraser, and every week I will speak with incredible people who share their lessons, experiences, and stories from their time spent in the energy sector. Hi there, and welcome back again to this week's episode. If you're new to the show, then please take a second to subscribe and even consider sharing the show with just one other person. This week I am joined by Geoffrey Cann. Geoffrey is an incredible author, speaker, and fellow podcaster. Geoffrey, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
I sure will. Thank you so much for extending to me an invitation to appear. My background is a lengthy career serving the oil and gas industry, the variety of global markets, usually in a commercial capacity. I don't have a technical background, so I'm not an engineer. And that experience covers oil sands, onshore, offshore, liquefied natural gas, all kinds of different projects. And then most recently, I've been writing a series of books about the oil and gas industry's need to embrace digital tools so as to extend the runway that the industry has to continue on while we sort through energy transition issues. The digital has upended all of these other industries, and it's my belief that these technologies offer the industry great promise to improve its environmental performance, lower its costs, improve its productivity, attract talent and capital. And so that's my mission. If you like, I yell at the industry with a megaphone and say, come on, guys, we got to do better.
Yeah.
That's my story.
Okay, that sounds an amazing story as well. So how did you get started off in the energy sector?
Well, I was working, doing a university degree at McGill in Montreal, and graduated with a background in computer science and finance and out of the business school, and was looking for work. And a company called Imperial Oil, who were owned by, partially owned by ExxonMobil, were recruiting. And so I applied and was very fortunate to get the role. And I stayed there for 3 years. That was a great education around how this industry works and its opportunity. Then I went back at an MBA, joined what at the time was Touche Ross, became Deloitte. And then I stayed there for 30 years. And in the last 20 years, Deloitte verticalized its consulting practice and began to focus on various industries. And I had the opportunity to change industries at the time, or pick an industry. And because I thought I'd been working in China on projects, and I realized that half the world has very limited access to energy, and yet it's so vital to human existence, that I thought the long-term play to work in energy was very compelling. And so I shifted gears, joined the industry, and devoted the rest of my career, 30 past years, to the singular industrial occupation.
Okay. So what is the biggest change in the energy sector that you've seen over the years?
The biggest change. The biggest change. That's a great question. I'm not sure I would characterize the biggest change. To me, you have to look at these things perhaps in eras. So the biggest change by far goes back to the 1970s with the development of OPEC and the nationalization of the Middle Eastern oil resources. That was the seminal event that forced a reckoning in the oil and gas industry around its structure. The next biggest change that I watched, and this again, significant industrial restructuring. The major oil companies exited vast chunks of what they used to do. They used to be vertical businesses. They had all drilling teams, their own drill rigs, and all this stuff. And they did all their own engineering. So they abandoned that and outsourced all of that stuff to create whole new industries. Engineering, procurement, and construction industry largely came about because oil and gas exited that industry. So that was a major change. And then the next big change was in the Y2K, this huge shift to SAP, major wave of rationalization. Exxon bought Mobil, BP bought Amoco. Then now the big change we're going through now is this wave related to digital adoption, which has been running now for for some time. And the big change in front of us is energy transition. So it's hard to say what's the single biggest change. Each one of these has been massive in terms of its impact on the industry.
Do you think that sustainability is the way forward in the energy sector?
Sustainability, to be clear, the oil and gas industry, and you kind of draw a distinction between oil and gas and energy. Energy to me is much bigger, includes power and renewable energies, nuclear, and so on. So just thinking oil and gas by definition is not sustainable on a timeline consistent with human existence. So oil and gas is sustainable if you looked at it through the lens of a millennia, like we're talking 100 million years, because that's how long it takes oil and gas to regenerate under natural earth processes. So, but it's not sustainable in a short-term human existence mindset. So, and the reason for that is that it doesn't self-renew, doesn't self-generate, and it produces excessive levels of emission that are distorting our environmental stability. So it's absolutely not sustainable. And anyone who thinks otherwise is just incorrect in their thinking. Now, can the industry be made more sustainable? There are many things it can do to improve its performance, but to be purely sustainable in the same way that, forestry industry rejuvenates its trees or farming rejuvenates crops, it's never going to be sustainable. That's just not realistic for oil and gas.
Okay. No, thank you. How do you not think it's going to be realistic?
Well, because the emissions that come from burning fossil fuels are accumulating in the atmosphere and are already causing significant weather disruption that we have to deal with. And the solution is to stop burning fossil fuels. Well, if this industry was truly sustainable, we would be able to continue to consume fossil fuels the way we do, burning them, and we wouldn't be impacting the environment in a negative way. So until we figure out a way around that, then the industry is not sustainable. It certainly is not sustainable for society. And the solutions we have, carbon capture and storage is a great one, works fine at where you accumulate all the carbon emissions in a nice place, single place, and you can capture them and inject them underground. But most of the emissions come out of tailpipes. And that means rethinking automobiles, ships, aircraft. And that's just not, at the moment, that's just not practical. We just don't know how to do that at scale.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, there's definitely a move to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, and a lot of money is going into this question. How can we pull CO2 out of the atmosphere at scale so that we can bring the balance of CO2 in the atmosphere back into balance? And so there's a lot of money going in that direction. But we have a lot of work to do before we can remove 50 years of combustion of fossil fuels.
Do you think that that's even realistic, that we would be able to do that, though?
That's a great question. I've learned never to underestimate human ingenuity. And you throw enough money at a problem, humans have shown over and over and over again our creativity, our innate curiosity, our drive. We successfully overcome problem after problem after problem. And so I don't believe it's unrealistic, but the timelines we're talking about might, for direct carbon capture from the atmosphere, might be stretching out years, and we need scale answers much sooner.
Yeah, I agree, actually.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm a big fan of carbon capture and storage. If you can, it's a big flue stack for a coal plant. If you can find a way to capture the carbon and put it back underground, it's a huge, big win.
Yeah.
To rip apart all of the infrastructure we've invested in to deliver energy low cost. But the reality is, it takes a lot of money, a lot of investment, got to have the right geology. And very often these plants aren't located because you made this forward thought thinking about, let's put this coal plant where there's the perfect geology to do carbon capture. Rarely it's done that way, if ever. The coal plant was done economically because it was proximity to the coal, or it was close to a consuming market that would use the electricity. So we have to very often that's a pretty tough one. Try and find that perfect place where your coal plant and your carbon capture asset are right close to each other.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you something else.
Fire away.
I could listen to you all day. Actually, I could. Amazingly intelligent. So, who was your role model in your career?
My role model, there's a partner at Deloitte who was instrumental in my career. His name was Richard Cooper. Also, his friends called him Dick Cooper. He passed away a few years ago, but he was my guide and mentor. He was energetic, clever. He was a great people person. He thought about people's careers and others. He put others first. He's very successful, and he's been was an inspiration for me for many years. This sort of a very very personal level, and you wouldn't know him unless you were in that little circle of people, to be honest. But he was my mentor. Yeah.
He sounds like an amazing person. What was the most important thing that he taught you?
Oh gosh, there's so many life lessons that he taught. In fact, one I was just using today in an earlier session. I was helping someone who was thinking about they applied for a job and they had the first interview, and that was great. But then the next question is, how do you keep that relationship warm without looking needy? And because the usual job interview process is you call the person up and go, have you made a decision? Can I see somebody else in your company? Blah, blah, blah. It's all me. Dick told me, people don't work that way. If you want to get what you want, what you need to do is give someone something up to 9 times before you've developed, and the message they get is that you care more about them than you care about yourself. You think about them more. That's how you create the sense of obligation and warmth that translates into a positive counter reaction. So with my friend, it was, okay, you've had the job interview. That's great. What are you sending this person that shows you listened and you're thinking about them? Not, here's me, and I want you to think about me. Because if you want that person to think positively about you, they have to see you as thinking about them first. That was a great Dick message, and it's served me very well over the years. Just think about other people first and give them something, and eventually they will reciprocate. Unless they're a psychopath, which they're never going to reciprocate. But most people aren't psychopaths. At least not.
So what would you give a person that would be, if you did have a first interview and then you were struggling to hear back from the company, what would you give them?
Oh, little things like in this particular instance, the interviewer asked a question about a specific technology that they were interested in. In this case, happened to be blockchain, but it could be anything, augmented reality, carbon capture. So they ask you in the interview, they ask you a question. What's your point of view about this? Well, so you should mentally kind of go, all right, well, why are they asking about that quite specific thing? They could ask about anything, but they're asking about that. That's a clue that it's on their radar or something they're concerned about. So after the interview, you go back to your office. Now you pull something out of your collection of documents or presentations or podcasts or something to say, hey, I was thinking about our interview. You were asking about blockchain. Here's an interesting episode that I really found helpful. I thought you might like it. Nothing to do with you, right? But it's a gift to them to remind them that you're thinking about them on their terms, which in this case happens to be about blockchain. That's the little things that you think about that you kind of do to reciprocate and keep a relationship warm.
Okay. I would have never have thought about doing that.
Yeah, it's because, we're not programmed that way. Like when you're doing job hunting, right? You're pretty me-centric. People can get a little desperate, right? I got to get paid. Like I got to pay the mortgage this month. So it's very easy to kind of get very, very needy be sort of pursuing things on your terms. I think you'd have to do it the other way around. Think about them in their terms and help them see you as helpful to their agenda. That makes them feel like you're the right person to hire.
Okay. I'm going to try that the next time.
Tell me how it goes.
I will.
Dick's rule of 9, though, right? You got to do it 9 times before unless the person's a psychopath, you won't know until you do it 9 times. And if they still aren't responding to you, okay, it's never going to go anywhere. But most people after 2 or 3 times, right?
Okay.
It'd be like going on a date, and you show up at the date with somebody, and you've brought wine, you've brought champagne and flowers and chocolates and a wedding ring and a wedding invitation, and all at the same time. No, that's not how you date people. You start with, let's go out for coffee, and then you follow up and go, hey, I was thinking of you, and here's a little something I thought of. You think about them, and then think about business relationship building, like trying to create an interest in another person. Just bring some of that gift giving in that relationship too.
Okay.
It's
Thank
easy.
you. Okay.
Yeah. Think like a lover. Think like a lover. You'll be more successful if you think about business as,
No, that's what
love
I
to
say.
someone.
That's
Yeah.
what you say. No, you don't know. You don't know my dating history. No, that would not work for me.
Oh, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, hopefully it might change soon. So, what is the most challenging thing about your current role, and how do you handle it?
Well, I left Deloitte 5 years ago and decided to pursue my career on my own terms rather than working for that particular business model. So I left and walked away from 30 years as a consultant and 20 years as a partner there, and switched on my own business. And far and away, the biggest challenge is the constant business generation, sales, and marketing effort that you have to do. Because without that, you don't generate the income the leads and the sales. And so it requires sustained, consistent, everyday action. And that's not for me. That's been a skill that I have to nurture and develop every week. It's not innate. It's not something I do naturally. And so it stands consistently as the single biggest challenge.
Okay. So, do you ever regret leaving your corporate job to start up by yourself?
No, absolutely not. Don't miss it at all. People don't appreciate this, but this is what happened to me when I left my corporate job. So I discovered, and a lot of people will discover this. I use my LinkedIn profile just as an example. I had 4,000 LinkedIn connections when I left Deloitte, right? 1,500 of them, well over a third, were actually with other people in Deloitte. And that was fine when I was in Deloitte and I needed to meet other people in Deloitte. But once you leave that organization, there's no reason for you to, if you're a consultant, why would you hook yourself up on LinkedIn to all kinds of other consultants? They're not going to hire you. Why would they? And so the network building that I did inside Deloitte did not serve me at all when I had to completely rebuild it. And it's a much more interesting network at the end of the day because it's dramatically not oriented towards other consultants, but real industry business professionals and business people. So it's a far superior network, if you like, than what I had before. So I don't miss Deloitte at all. It actually forced me to confront a whole bunch of assumptions about life and corporate life that at the end of the day aren't very sustainable. Way too much travel, too much time away from home, not healthy eating, all that stuff just went away. I lost 15 pounds. I left Deloitte.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Had to buy all kinds of clothes. The clothing tax associated with corporate life. Really? Like, how did that happen? 15 pounds. It's nuts.
It is crazy, actually.
Yeah. 10% of body mass was tied up in, corporate life, is to get rid of it. So, and then the other challenge when you leave corporate life is you need to, there's a lot of people, if they say retire at 65, which is common in the Western world, the day you retire is the day you lose that entire network of contacts that you've developed, because it's largely going to be an internal network, people inside the company you're with. And the minute you're gone, you're ghosted. Like you don't exist anymore because you're not relevant to the day-to-day. So suddenly you go from 200 emails a day to 1 or 2. And for a lot of people, that's a huge loss of identity and value, and you don't feel relevant. And, you're 65 and you're trying to figure out, what do I do now? I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to do that transition when you're 58 than when you're 65. So that's my advice. I don't miss it at all. And I probably should have left earlier.
Okay.
Mm.
So how do you go from that readjustment to living in a corporate world and being so busy to then trying to, because I do have listened to your podcast and it's amazing, by the way.
Thanks.
And it must have opened so many doors for you.
Oh yeah, it's nuts. It's so you have to think about this. In my mind, since I was a consultant for years, I think about these things like a consultant would. So I imagine I was advising myself as a customer, and that's how I thought about it. And so I reimagined my own career and life in very different terms. One of the things I wanted to do was make money while I sleep. When you're a consultant, you don't make money sleeping. You only make money working. But Elon Musk makes money while he sleeps because he has these assets that generate income all the time, whether he's paying attention to them or not. And so I had an ambition. I gotta learn to make money while I'm sleeping, and then I can sleep more. Or go do something else and let the money generate itself. That required investment in personal assets that make money. So in my case, it was books, articles, podcasts, training courses. They make money while I sleep. And so that was a key goal. Figure that out. And that was a major shift in thinking and mindset when I left corporate life.
Okay. But you were saying before that you think that when you left, you were about 65. And then you said that it would have been easier for you if you'd left at 50. Is that literal or is that like...
No, I actually left Deloitte at 58.
Okay.
Yeah. Most people leave their jobs when they have to at 65. And my point is that if you leave your job at age 65 and all you have is an internal network of friends and contacts from the same company, at age 65, that's going to be yanked from you overnight. And that transition for a lot of people is very, very hard. A lot of marriages break up. There's lots of substance abuse reported. There's lots of suicides, lots of heart attacks. Like, it's a problem when you leave it that late, especially in corporate life. It gets ripped away from you and you're left with nothing. And my point is that it's way easier to rip that away from you when you're younger, at 58, say, because now you have 7 years to go build a completely new business or career on your terms. And it can't be taken away from you until you're ready to let it go because you own it. It's very different thinking. And I think it's far healthier, frankly.
I agree, actually. I do agree with that.
Yeah. Like I don't know about you, but if you think about it, you probably in your personal life, you will be able to name names, people who, weirdly died when they were 66. How did that happen? She just retired or he just retired. Now they're dead. Like, how did that work? And the reason is, this whole shift from active corporate life to retired life is so hard, so wrenching.
Because I do have actually met or heard actually of some people that have retired and then they had to, they retired quite young as well. And it seemed like they would have their whole life ahead of them. And then suddenly they've passed away.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, I think there's something inherently wrong when that's the outcome. It's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to live to your 90.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And do, go out on your terms.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to rust away. I want to come screaming into the finish line. all out of breath, going, hell, that was fun. And I don't want to sit in a rocking chair and just rust away. It's not my goal.
No, it's not my goal either. Actually.
Not my goal. And this is such a great time to be thinking about this because, we are at an era of tremendous transition. Like the last time we did in energy terms, an energy transition, a big one globally, would have been whale oil, probably. That was the last time we have fully abandoned an energy product. China went through a big transition in the 80s when they opened up because they were, they basically had no energy. It was all human labor doing everything. And they did a transition to modernize, still underway. But for the most of us, we've never been through this. And so this is, what a great time to be working in it. So much opportunity. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I agree, actually.
So exciting. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So I was going to lead on with, is there anything in your career that you still want to achieve?
Still want to achieve? That's a great question. I don't know that I have career ambitions that I'd say I still want to achieve. I have an ambition to replicate my Deloitte income, but not working in Deloitte. That's proving to be, I got close, but it's proving to be quite challenged to do that and sustain it. I want to do a TED Talk one day. I'd like to be good enough that someone would say, we'd like you to do a TED Talk. And so that'd be fun. I think there is lurking in me somewhere, there's at least one or two more books that I want to kind of get out. And so those are on my radar. But I wouldn't say any of them are, go start the next Tesla. Like, there's nothing like that.
Okay. I think you'd be amazing at TikTok, actually.
I'd like to think so. I've been trained on it, and I get paid now to speak professionally. So I think there's room there. But you have to be recognized by somebody who feels the same, and that takes time.
You think so? Do you think it's because you see a lot of the younger ones on TikTok, and they're all like trying to do their bit, and there's some of them are really huge, but it would take quite a few years to build up, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's not overnight. Social media is like, it's like Starbucks. In North America, people will go to Starbucks 3 times a day, 4 times a day. It's that part of people's identity. Just go get a cup of coffee. And so in social media terms, you have to be so appealing that people want to see what you're up to 3 times a day. When you think about it, that's crazy. But if you're doing a TikTok video every 2 hours, people will tune into you every 3 times a day. I think that's where there's something about that, like to get that kind of recognition, and you got to be doing this full time all the time, and it's got to be something clever and creative. Otherwise, you won't be able to market.
Okay, interesting.
Mm.
When you were in your corporate world, if you were going to hire someone, what kind of qualities would you be looking for?
Well, so I've only really had one corporate career, and that was for Deloitte. So the skills that I was looking for were largely framed by that singular experience, which probably is a little too narrow, to be honest. Where I was always on the hunt for people who had tremendous interpersonal skills and were instantly likable. And the reason for that is that consulting itself as an industry is very interpersonal. So interpersonal skills were key, absolutely key. Then there was next thing I looked for was people who thought like consultants. And this is something you can sort of teach, but a lot of people come to it. Some people come to it naturally. And if you can find those people, that's better. So the way a consultant thinks is they can see how to solve a problem while not knowing what the answer is in advance. To compare this to an engineer will know what the answer is, just tell you. And that's not very good consulting, because people want to be involved in the solution. Like, how did you get to the solution? So a good consultant is someone who can share with you, here's how I'd solve this problem, or how I go about doing the research, but I don't know what the answer is. I'd be looking for that. And then I'd be looking for, and this be on the third bucket, because this is something you can teach, learn from experience, is do you have the technical skill that I'm looking for? So if I was looking for someone, say, with a background in supply chain, did they have a background? Did they work in a logistics business? But that's something you could teach over time or learn over time. But the first two are very hard to teach. You had to have that. I wouldn't say innately, but you can teach people to have better interpersonal skills. But if they have it natively, that's just better.
Okay.
Mm.
I've never heard that. I've had quite a few. I asked this question to quite nearly everybody, and nobody's ever given me that answer.
It's one way to think about it. Yeah.
It is. It is. So, what is your zone of genius? What are you really good at?
Zone of genius. Uh, I don't think mansplaining, if you ask my spouse, she'd say, you're really good at that.
What is that?
Mansplaining.
No, I've never heard of it.
Oh, heavens. Well, in North America, mansplaining is a term of mockery given to know-it-all men who talk about what they know, even though you don't ask them. I accuse ChatGPT of this. It's like a mansplainer, because you ask ChatGPT like a 7-word question, and it'll give you a 200-word answer. That's mansplaining. So anyway, I'm joking. The small number of things I'm good at, I sit I straddle 2 domains, which is relatively unique. One domain is the oil and gas industry from one end to the other. I've done 1,000 projects in oil and gas from various levels. And the other is digital innovation and digital technology. I've been working in technology my entire life. So I sit basically at the cross street of oil and gas way and the digital highway. And so I bridge between people who are on oil and gas and don't understand digital, and people who are in digital but don't understand oil and gas. I can help them collaborate, communicate, and find common ground. So that's a unique skill. Second is I communicate well. I write books and do my public speaking work and training courses. And so I've been my entire life. This is something I do quite naturally. And so those would be the 2 things, and they kind of feed each other, as you can imagine.
Okay. No, that's interesting. Thank you. I was going to ask you something else, actually. Have you ever had any career disasters? And how have you
heavens, yes. Yes, complete train wrecks. Not enough to get fired, but pretty bad. So, do you want to hear about them?
Yes, please. Oh, yeah, please.
Tell me a career disaster, one that went really bad. So I was contracted to a company in Calgary to extract the SAP system configuration from the parent company and stand it up in this new spinoff. And there was all kinds of problems here. I didn't fully understand SAP very well, and I had made some totally inappropriate assumptions about it. The customer was very difficult to deal with. They refused. I went through 14 meetings and iterations of me writing and presenting a contract to them to get them to sign. Meanwhile, the date of the transaction got closer and closer and closer, and they wouldn't sign a contract. So I was strung out. I had a couple $1 million in accounts receivable all built up, but without the contract, I couldn't bill it. So it was getting awkward inside Deloitte, right? And so this was just complete train wreck of a project. In the end, back to my mentor, Dick, we talked about it, and we agreed to walk away. So here's this company. They're 2 weeks from their go live, and they don't have a system. And we simply put the tools down and walked away. Very difficult meetings with the customer over this. And it's the only time in my life I put tools down. But I learned a very valuable lesson in all of that, which is if there's going to be a murder, hand around the murder weapon. So there's lots of fingerprints on it. It makes it very hard to pin it on one person. So by talking to Dick and all kinds of other people inside Deloitte, we got all the Deloitte partners aligned to recognize that this was not me being a train wreck, wasn't entirely my fault, but it was as much the client who simply refused to get to a contract. But it was a complete disaster. I walked away from millions of dollars of work, which we couldn't bill.
Why?
Mentioned, screwed up the relationship with that organization and the parent company, and all kinds of fallout. It was a disaster.
Okay.
Yeah, real mess.
I was going to say, how did you come back from that? That's quite a big thing. I've heard of I was about to say I've heard of one other. Yeah, it's not as big as that, billions of dollars. Yeah, I've heard of. Yeah, I've heard of a similar situation.
Oh, that was a bad one. Well, as I say, the key was the issue was we were going to walk away from this arrangement where we were going to lose millions of dollars. So that decision had to be covered corporately, not just by me individually. Now, if I had selected or elected, because this is often done, is you hide this problem and you don't tell anybody about it, as you work your way through to try and fix it. And by being much more open and transparent about it, I managed to get my colleagues to recognize that this wasn't me. This was as much the client. And so another saying is a problem shared is a problem solved. Or in this case, if there's going to be a murder, pass around the weapon so that there's a lot of handprints on it. That way, no one person takes the blame. The organization says, well, we all held the weapon here, so we're all going to take this one. So that's how I came back. I had another one, which is another crazy one. We were doing I was a client in the oil industry, and we were contracted to build a HR program to attract new people to join the company. And it required us to boost compensation quite a bit because they were underpaying for the situation they were in. And they gave us a spreadsheet with some numbers, and we built a very complicated model to figure this thing out. And then we presented it to their management team, and they signed off on it. And life is good. Then we discovered the spreadsheet they gave us had an error in it. And the numbers were out by $300 million. Now, at that level, you got to go to the board of directors and explain how on earth did you agree to a project where you misbudgeted it by $300 million. And it was client, when we dug into it, I go, how on earth did this happen? Our work's usually not that crazy. We just realized the error was in their spreadsheet, not ours. But they're like, that's not good enough. You should have inspected our work to make sure it was correct. It's like, okay, got it. So we then put into place all kinds of remediation action in our own company to make sure that never happened again. So a spreadsheet that came from customers, we would put through automated tools to detect if there was any, cells that didn't add up correctly or formulas not right. And we made the problem go away. So the client was happy with that response, but hugely embarrassing for everybody because of the fallout was crazy, all the way up to the board.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, $300 million on a spreadsheet. Like, really? Holy Hannah. But that's doesn't take much, right? And some of these spreadsheet models are so complicated, and you imagine, what it's like getting someone else's spreadsheet, 8 megabyte spreadsheet with gazillions of pages and all these formulas, and you're told, go find the error. Oh,
wow.
Yeah,
There's a lesson in there. Check your spreadsheets.
Exactly. Don't trust spreadsheets given to you. That would be a lesson. But yeah, and we as soon as we found the error, we owned up. We said, here's the error. Got it. We found it. And we did not shy away. I didn't shy away from going to the customer and saying, here's what went wrong. We're terribly sorry. And well, how can we make it up for you? And so it is what it is. They at the end, they're like, this happens. It happens in business. And you were not malicious. You were not trying to hide anything. You're doing your best work. We both agree you should have looked at our work to make sure there were no errors in it. But at the end of the day, I think they knew they should have doing their own work had the flaw in it, not necessarily ours.
Okay. No, thank you. I was quite surprised actually at that. Yeah. Check your spreadsheets. Yes.
Check your spreadsheets. Yeah.
Check your spreadsheets. So I was going to ask you, how does your current role compare to your aspirations as a young boy?
If you told me when I was 6 that I would be writing books for a living, I would have said, that's funny. No. And when I was I did my first performance review when I was working at Imperial Oil. The feedback was, your writing is terrible. So, and now I write books. So the compare and contrast is it's pretty dramatic. But I didn't really, even back then, I didn't really know what I was going to do in the long term. When you're a kid, at one point I thought, I might be a lawyer or an accountant, nice and safe, and But now I'm an independent entrepreneur in the world of intellectual property. So it doesn't line up at all with what I thought I would be doing. If I think back to the very, very early days.
Okay. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of like, if you're a young person, you look around your family and go, well, what's the most successful person in my family doing? Extended family, aunts, uncles, and stuff. And the most successful ones for me were lawyers. They had the biggest houses and they seemed to have the nicest cars. And I thought, I'm going to be a lawyer. That looks like a pretty good gig. And then you get into university and go, no passion for this. Go do something else.
I think being a lawyer as well, it's a lot it's a lot of hours, but then you can say that about any job then.
Yeah. But to me, I think there's the way I think about it is imagine a Venn diagram with 3 circles, So one circle is what are you good at? And another circle is what are you passionate about? And then the third circle is what makes money? And what you want to do is get those 3 to overlap somehow. Because if you've got skills and talent and it makes money, but you're not really interested in it, that's a job. If you have something that makes money and you are passionate about it, but you have no skills or training in it, that's a dream. I might like to be a brain surgeon, but I don't have the skills for it. And then you might have skills and talent and at doing something, and you're really interested in it, but it doesn't make any money. Well, that's called a hobby. And so what you're looking for is something that does all 3, makes money, you're really good at it, and you're passionate about it. Now you can build a career around that. So that's the key, is to try and find that what makes your career. So at one point I was very passionate about consulting. And so I made a great career. Now I'm not passionate about that anymore. So that would be a job. So I'm much more interested in other things.
Excellent. No, I'm really glad that you're really happy in your current role.
Yeah, I'm very happy. Yeah, losing weight, stress level down, long life. Life is good.
Yeah, it does really sound like you're having a great time.
I'm having a great time. I live in a great place. I'm on the Sunshine Coast of British Columbia. It's called that because it's a low Vancouver area is principally a rainforest area, so it's a lot of water. But this part, because of the geography, the rain often misses where I live, and so it's has a higher level of sunshine than the rest of the Vancouver area. So it's called the Sunshine Coast, and it's not wrong, and so it's a great place to live.
I've never been there, but it sounds amazing.
Oh, it's beautiful. Imagine very mild winter. You're on the ocean, so mild winter. Year-round hummingbirds hanging around, bears hibernate and then come down and root through your garbage, see what they can get to eat. So bears are just waking up now, so we have to be very careful about even leaving hummingbird feeders out. The bears will tear them off the house to get at the liquid. Yeah, and then it's green and you're right on the ocean. So I have a sea kayak and a stand-up paddleboard, and I go mountain biking every weekend. And yeah, it's great. It's a great place to be.
No, it sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So what keeps you motivated when things get tough?
What keeps me motivated? I don't, it's hard to say that there's any one thing. I just seem to have an internal go forward motor that doesn't really pay too much attention to setbacks. And I know it sounds kind of glib, but when you're my first 30 years I mentioned as a consultant, and my win rate, in other words, you pitch an idea to somebody and they accept it and you move and they hire you, might have been 1 and maybe 5 and say maybe 15%, maybe 20%. Most of the time it didn't go anywhere. So I'm very used to setback. So setbacks don't bother me at all. So when things don't really get going that tough. I haven't found anything yet since leaving Deloitte. I'd have to say there's not a lot I'd stare at and go, wow, this is really hard. I got to go do something else. I haven't found that yet.
I'm glad, actually. I'm glad you haven't.
Me too. Now wait, this afternoon might produce something. A setback. But I turn work away. I have to, because I get very picky about what I do. So I get to turn work away. So that's nice. I get to hang out with people I like. So that's good. And I write my ideas down and people pay to hear me talk about them. Like you add it all up, it's a pretty good gig.
No,
Really.
it does. It sounds like a very good gig, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So one
Yep.
final question, maybe. If you could turn back time, would you change anything?
I would definitely change some things. As an example, when I was in my corporate life, I was not particularly aggressive at pursuing personal growth opportunities that I quite rightfully should have gone after. And that's a reflection of I describe it as a relative level of passivity and just waiting to be recognized and acknowledged, when in reality is there were people around me who were far lesser at the job, and they were given the opportunity because they were more aggressive in self-promoting and self-positioning and the like. And so if I could turn the clock back, there are 4 or 5 times over my corporate career where I should have been far more aggressive and insistent, and I would have had a different life outcome for sure. As one example, there was when Dick retired and we needed to find a new partner for new leader for the office. I was an obvious candidate, because the office was energy focused. I had been there for years. I was at the exact right position to be promoted into the leadership role. And I was asked if I would take it on, which is the equivalent of saying, "We want you to take it on." You don't think about it in those terms. You think of the face value. And I said, "Well, I'm not sure I'm ready." And their reaction was, "He doesn't want the job." So they found somebody else to take the job on. In the end, that character was fired for cause. And so what I should have done was been much more forthright, said, "Nope, I'm ready for that job. And I can't understand why you haven't offered it to me sooner. Like, what's wrong with you people? Are you blind?" And but no, I was much more humble, and that humility gets in the way when you're in corporate life. You have to be far more aggressive. So if I could turn the clock back and revisit a handful of life events, I absolutely would do things very differently in the moment.
Okay, that's really good advice.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you something else, but I'm going to leave it there because that was so good. That's all the questions I have today. I would like to thank Geoffrey for your time. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening, and see you next week. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, I'd like to gently encourage you to leave a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts, and share the show with another person. You can also follow me on LinkedIn or via my website, www.michellefraserconsultancy.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next week.